Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this month's Money Gym Masterclass. As you'll see, the setup's a little bit different. We're all in the same rooms, which is really nice, and so we'll see how the new format goes. But really nice that you're able to join us here today. So nice to see so many people. Looking out the window right now. Obviously, I think it's good that the topic of this month's masterclass is spreading the cost of summer. It's obviously been a strange few years, and for some of us, it will be the first time in a while that we've been able to get abroad. But also, we're aware that for lots of people, the cost of living will mean that that's not going to be an option. But whatever your plans, the key message of this month's session is that a bit of planning is going to go a long way and help you to enjoy the summer, and mean that it's actually a period of time where we can enjoy the sun, enjoy perhaps a little bit more time outside and things like that. And then a bit of planning there is going to go a long way, rather than it being a time where we need to worry about money. So over the course of this session, we'll be sharing our tips, our ideas, and perhaps giving you a little bit of inspiration too. So we hopefully spend less time worrying or feeling guilty about the summer and more time enjoying ourselves. So without further ado, for those of you that have attended these before, you'll know I'm Ben West, and I'm responsible here for business development at London Mutual. And you'll be pleased to know that rather than having to spend the next 45 minutes listening to my voice, let me introduce my colleague, Holly Hunt. Here at London Mutual, Holly runs our digital marketing and social media. And so even if you don't recognize her in person, you'll have seen her brilliant work on social media, especially on some of our TikToks. It's also great to welcome back Monica for this month's masterclass, as well as leading on membership experience for us here at London Mutual. She's one of our most seasoned travellers, and she's you visited how many? Was it?
Around 65.
Around 65 countries. So a bit of an expert on if you are planning or able to go abroad this year, how to make your money go further when you do that. So great to have both Holly and Monica joining us today. In terms of what we're planning to cover in today's session, we'll be looking at budgeting. So that's making the most of your money, so that actually whatever your plans this summer, you don't have to feel guilty about it later. Talking about cutting costs, so that actually, whatever the size of your budget, you can make the most of things. We'll also try to inspire you a little bit with some fun things that you can do just by staying here in London this summer that won't cost any money. So looking forward to hearing some of those ideas. Monica's going to share some tips about ways to save money if you are lucky enough to be going abroad this year. And then before heading into a Q&A, we'll talk about some of the kind of specific financial aspects of planning a trip as well. So a lot to cover in today's session, but as always, we'll try and kind of get through the structured content relatively quickly, because I know that for me, one of the bits that I enjoy most about these sessions is the Q&A at the end, where we'll be answering some of your questions. So if you do have questions, do think about it and pop them into the chat as we go along, and we'll try and get to as many of them as possible at the end. So as usual, guys, what about you? What's going on with your summer plans this year?
So I've got a few plans in the works. I haven't got any solid vacations going away anywhere planned yet, but I've got a few things going on in the UK that I'm excited and looking forward to, as long as the weather stays as nice as it has been. So
it's a bit, perhaps a few vacations this year, maybe pops festivals.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, Monica, I'm assuming you've got your flights booked.
Yes, I've started quite early. I started looking at the flights back in January. We know COVID limited us for going abroad for the past 2 years. However, I managed to find really good deals, because situation in January was not clear yet. So there were still lots of bargain flights, I would say, for like 20, 30 quid. Obviously, when you look over the period of the summer and as well like bank holidays, this is kind of the highest cost of flights like to go abroad. But there is still a way to find like kind of cheap deals, either like to book first minute deals or last minute deals.
So we'll come on to that a little bit in a minute. But I think it's fair to say that a lot of what we're discussing here today applies equally, whether you're staying close to home this year or whether you are traveling a bit further afield. I think, given the weather, it's unpredictable, and so summer in the UK can sometimes feel a little bit too short. So we're keen to help you make the most of whether we get a few sunny weeks or whether it's a bit of a grotty British summer. We're here to give you hopefully some ideas and inspiration about how you can make the most of that, even if your plans are staying within London for the summer. And I think it's really important that that you don't miss the opportunity to enjoy what's hopefully the good weather without having it spoiled by feeling guilty about spending money you don't have, or by money worries, because actually, whether it's the trip of the lifetime or stay in the UK, money worries, we know actually life's too short to spend time having to worry about that. So actually a bit of pre-planning can often help there as well. So, and this won't come as a big surprise, but we're big fans here at London Mutual of budgeting. And for us, this is the starting point for most of our conversations about money. It's not about doing lots of complicated sums, but it is about knowing exactly where you stand. So that if you are lucky enough to be able to splash out, you can do that guilt-free. And if things are feeling tight right now, as they are for many, many people, you can get an idea of how much you have got to work with, or frankly don't have to work with. But ultimately, it's better to know what's going on with your finances than to face the anxiety or the worry of not knowing and being scared that it's all going to catch up with you later. So, I think, we've all had times when, it's kind of a sharp intake of breath when you sort of pull up your mobile banking app or go into branch and check your balance. There are always times when we'd rather not know. But I think the key message here is that in the long term, it's going to be better to know where you stand with your finances than not knowing, and rather than letting problems build up. So in terms of a budget, at the most basic level, a budget is basically totting up the money that you've got coming in and you expect to come in, alongside what you think or expect to go out. There's a tool on our website, creditunion.co.uk, which will actually take you through the steps of putting together a budget. So if it's not something you've done before, I'd encourage you to check that out on our website, and it will literally take you through and ask you how much you spend on all those different things, how much income you've got, whether that's through salary, benefits, or other sources of income. And then it will basically break that down for you, give you a nice summary of where your money's going, and how much you might be overspending or underspending. And I think, that's probably a good starting point for starting to make your summer plans, is having a little bit of an idea of what your current situation is. I think the other thing to say is that tool is provided by the Government Money Advice Service. So all of the information you enter through that is completely confidential. That's between you and the website. We don't get to see any of that. So useful tool on our website, but it's there to help you plan. And of course, we'd encourage you to do this at any time of the year. But I think it's especially important to do it in times like the summer holidays. I think, lots of during the summer, lots of aspects of things are different, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Obviously in the summer, especially if you've got kids, there's a few more things that you've got to consider, seeing as it's the school holidays. And then obviously towards the end of the school holidays, you've got to factor in the back to school costs. So yeah, it's a little bit different to the rest of the year, but it's good to all sort of have a bit of a plan.
So if you're really organised, you kind of got at the start of the year, we talked about kind of coming up with a budget for the overall year. But given that things are a little bit different during the summertime, if you're really keen, really organised, and obviously we'd always recommend that you are, actually thinking about what costs might be going up due to the kids being out of school or whatever else. So when we were putting this together, Holly, I know that you kind of came up with some ideas as well about how, once you've got an idea of where you're at with your finances and your budgets, an idea of, even if that's a very small amount of money, as I'm sure it is for many people, some of the ways to make that go a little bit further.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, personally for me, one way that I sort of cut my costs is by religiously tracking my spending, and I usually do this through my online banking. So I'll even go on my online banking app daily and just look at my transactions, see what's come out, see what's gone in. There might be days where I feel like, oh, well done, Holly, you haven't spent that much money today. And then I'll check my online banking and see that actually a lot of things that I might not have even considered have actually added up, or a direct debit's gone out that day. And it's just good to make sure that you're on track with what you've spent. Obviously, not everybody will check daily, but I would suggest maybe checking weekly, so that it can just help you to plan ahead and you know what maybe your budget is for the next week, or if you've saved on money that week, you could treat yourself that weekend. But that's something that I do personally. Another idea that I had was that you could sit down and audit your bank account. And what I mean by that is looking through all of your subscriptions, your memberships, your outgoings, and seeing what you could maybe cut out for a few months over the summer. So, for example, if you're signed up to Netflix, obviously during the winter, you're at home a lot more. You probably watch more movies, get comfy in bed, stick something on. During the summer, you might be out and about a lot more. You might not be in every evening watching TV. So do you need to spend that money on a subscription? Maybe not. And the same goes for something like the gym. Make the most of the outdoors this summer. Go for a run. Cancel that gym subscription. That's an extra maybe 20 quid you've got yourself there each month. So just little things like that where you think you might be able to cut them out. And then obviously just returning back to what we said about the budgets. You might have set yourself a yearly budget. You might have set up a budget in January. Just go back to it. Have a look at what you set up already this year. See if you've saved money anywhere. Have you underspent this year what you plan to spend? Have you overspent? And sort of use that as a starting point for where you're going to go with your spendings over the next couple of months.
I think that's a really interesting one there, Holly, in terms of, if you are sort of in a situation where there are sort of, perhaps you're not on top of some of those, that whether it's that Amazon Prime subscription or something you set up a while ago, going through all that with a fine tooth comb and almost putting together your summer war chest and looking at if they can put together some cash and you can say, right, that's my summer fund. I think the other thing also that I also just wanted to kind of make clear with this particular slide is that we know that, often for a lot of people, perhaps more people than before, it does feel like no matter what you do, it's going to be tough to make ends meet. And, there will be people in situations where actually no amount of budgeting is going to be able to help. And so I don't want anybody who's watching today to feel like, follow these tips and everything will be great, because we know that for many people it won't be. But I think, there are hopefully one or two ways of thinking about your money here and ideas and inspiration that, that may help you along the right, the right lines of thinking. But, what I would always say is that actually, if you are in a situation where actually all of this sounds, like that's not me or that's not my situation, there are plenty of sources of help, both the government money advice service, but then also specialist areas of support. And you can find those too on the Money Gym section of our website as well.
I would like to add, just one thing to that, except of auditing your statements as well. What I do personally is auditing the stuff what I've got at home, clothes, equipment you don't need. I know sometimes you feel like this time you need the toaster or this or that. You can really go through your stuff you've got at home. And if you feel like you haven't used something for a really long time, you can basically sell it on eBay or another website, and that one will give you extra money on your bank account as well.
Yep, that's the other situation. That's the other one. If there's cutting back, but then also raising cash. So there are some ideas there, and hopefully for one or two people on today's masterclass, those will be useful ideas. In terms of kind of more ideas and inspiration, I think in London, things can get pretty stuffy in the summer heat. And so, most of us will want to avoid spending lots of time sat in the back of a boiling hot bus or on a stuffy tube. But that's not to say that London isn't a great place to be in the summer, with lots of free attractions, beautiful parks, new parts of town to explore that you haven't perhaps been to before. I think one of the big ones is Carnival, as well as the Lambeth Show, which just a shout out there, London Mutual will be at the Lambeth Show this year, so come and say hello. But Holly, you've put together a list of some other ideas of things to do in London over the summer, perhaps to keep the kids entertained or keep yourself entertained, that don't cost any or much money.
Yeah, so I think everyone can agree that maybe sometimes being in the city isn't the most comfortable or enjoyable when it's really hot during the summer. But there are actually loads of hidden gems and things that you can do that aren't going to break the bank, whether that's going out with your kids or with your family or just doing stuff with your friends. So I've got these ideas on the screen, which are sort of, some of them are maybe a bit more obvious than others. So you could visit a farm. So, for example, there's Vauxhall City Farm. It's a fun day out. I'm pretty sure it doesn't cost more than £15. In fact, I think it's less than that. So that's just one example of something you could do that you might not have considered doing in London. There's also all sorts of fetes and fairs and festivals going on across the city over the next few months. You've got Rotherhithe Festival in July, South Norwood Festival, Gypsy Hill Fete. I'll add a whole list of these into the follow-up email just to give you guys a bit more of an idea. But usually with these kind of events, if you want to do your own research into it, they're usually posted on your council's your council's website pages. They have event pages. They're usually promoted on social media. Also just having a look if there's any local groups on your Facebook, they usually tend to post these. But yeah, there's loads of ideas of free things going on. So yeah, just make the most of what's on your doorstep.
And, it's also easy to forget because obviously, London is full of tourists in the summer, but it's easy to forget as a sort of Londoner that obviously one of the great things that London's got is a huge number of free museums and art galleries. So most of those, now most of those have now dropped their pandemic restrictions, so it's they're usually free to just turn up and enter and wander in, and that can be a great way of particularly if things get a bit hot, cooling, spend a nice cool afternoon wandering around some of those places. But I think one of the things we're working on at the moment is coming soon to our website. We're actually going to start having a calendar of community type events, and so that's one of the things that will be coming live on the website over the next few months. So no need to sit here and noting all that down, and we'll be sending around a roundup of the kind of key events in our usual email after today's masterclass. So Monica, I'm aware that we've talked a lot about sort of staycation, more London-based ideas, but I know you're kind of keen to talk a little bit about some ideas that if you're planning to get away and go a little bit further afield. So over to you.
Yeah, okay. So from my personal experience, what I normally do, first of all, I look for my ideal destination, where they would like to go. I usually use like comparison websites. One of them is Skyscanner or Kayak. So that option will give you, those apps will give you the options of every flight which going to your favorite destination. Obviously, you set up your filters from the cheapest to the most expensive one. So you can see basically what company flies, what days you put ideally. Loads of them you put as well through like 3 days before or after, so you don't have to put specifically what day you want to leave or come back. If this is what you want, this is fine, but you can go around certain period of time. Let's say I might be going here and there. Between those periods of times, you can find a really cheap deal. The same I do for the insurance. Because I travel quite a lot during the year, I found out that it's much cheaper to buy the yearly insurance than actually one at a time. It obviously depends how often do you go. If you go like once or twice a year, it's better to buy the travel insurance for this particular destination. Many times travel insurance obviously includes, we will go through we'll talk about travel insurance a bit later, but like please use this comparison site so you can see which one ends up being the cheapest. The next one is accommodation. That one is purely down to you because I don't know what type of traveler you are. For me personally, the accommodation, as long as it's clean, it is in the central area where I'm going. This is the most important for me. I usually go for the type of accommodation when I've got self-catering options. I don't personally cook when I'm on holidays, but it's obviously down to everyone with personal experiences. But as long as you've got a fridge or a kettle to have your cup of tea in the morning, this one is perfect solution, and it doesn't cost much more than having just the room with bed and little cupboard. Cheap way of traveling, solo traveling, obviously it's kind of the most expensive because you have to pay for your own taxi, you have to pay for your own accommodation. Traveling with friends or family members with the group is ending up being the cheapest because you share those costs. Then you can, as well, when you go with the group, you can bargain on some deals while you're abroad. So for example, we went last year with like 4 of us. So usually it's like, oh, if it's 4 of you, we can give you a little discount on that trip, on that tour. So that one is worth like mentioning to those people who are selling the offers. Don't feel bad about bargaining the price abroad, because this is what everyone does. If they don't give you the discount, it's not like you lose everything, but it's better to try these options as well. It's always like €5 here and there is going to make your budget. It's going to make your budget looking better. Very important, my personal experience, check your data roaming and check your allowance while you're abroad.
Skip that one.
yeah, because like within EU, most of this data roaming companies, your mobile providers are giving you the free access. However, once you are on one of the Greek islands, we just went very close to Albania, which is not obviously in EU, and we end up having like extra cost of that. Check your settings on your phone as well. You can have access to your data like manually, so you can block yourself of accessing the data which you don't want to access. In the hotel, obviously, you can ask for free Wi-Fi. So this is very like a very good option to check if you don't want to end up with like £100 mobile phone bill after your holidays. And check your kids as well. This is very important. Block the settings for the kids before you go abroad. Again, package holidays, they are very good. Recently, I've helped my friend to get like some kind of cheap holidays through Love Holidays and on the beach. Those websites is giving you as well the option for the cheapest flight, plus as well is linking to like different kind of hotels you wish to book. They are giving you already the reviews of the hotel, options you wish to have. You can go through filters if you want self-catering, if you want all-inclusive, whatever options you wish to have. And lots of these companies are giving you from 20 to even 40% of the discount.
I think that's a really interesting one on the package deals, because obviously sometimes when you think of a kind of a more traditional package deal, there's a limited choice of flights, limited choice of hotel. But actually, what a lot of people don't realize that if you go on a website like Expedia and you mix and match your flights and book your flight and accommodation at the same time, you've chosen the flights that suit you and you've chosen the accommodation that suit you. But by booking the two of them together, it's treated as a package deal, and so very often you'll get the same protections you'd get as if it was a package deal. So I think that's a really good tip there. Yeah,
exactly. And most of these companies are basically insured. So whatever happens, they give you money back or the voucher. We will talk about it later. I would mention as well Airbnb. So if you decide to buy flights separately, Airbnb is the website as well to go. If you like more like privacy and you want to rent the house like in the middle of nowhere and next to the beach, go for this option as well. Be flexible with the dates. I mentioned it earlier on. Obviously, August can be the most expensive around bank holidays. If you feel like there are any other periods of the times you may be able to go for holidays, please use this flexibility as well. So it will save you some money on that. Very important, check your expiry dates. Some countries obviously won't let you in if your passport is closer to 6 months finishing date. Check that one as a first before you go on holidays.
Great. I think that's quite a list there, Monica. I think a lot for everyone to a lot for everyone to digest there. So maybe we can return to some of that and explore some of that stuff in detail if people have got questions about it further on. But I am keen to keep us moving along so that we have time to answer everybody's questions in just a second. So I think a couple of aspects which I think we've touched upon here, but in terms of some of your tips around money and insurance, Monica.
Normally I would not advise any other bank account to open if it's not ours, but in this case, because of money spending abroad, I would really advise to open Monzo Revolut account. This option, this bank account gives you free withdrawals abroad up to £200 at a time in the month. You pay in your local currency. It's like a top-up card, so you top up with your British money. But then when you are abroad, you spend money in the different currencies, which you can exchange on your app.
So having sort of almost having a separate account that you use while you're on holiday, that's a really good idea. It gives you the kind of the flexibility to pay by card, but then you have to kind of make a decision to top it up each time. So that helps you stay within
It's
within
also
budget.
a good way to help you budget. Because if you've got a separate account and a separate card, you can put your holiday budget in there, and then you know you're not going to go over because it's all in one account in one place.
Yeah, and as well exchanging the money. So normally, when you exchange money here is always the most expensive thing to do. So when you exchange money online through your app from pounds to euros, you will get the best exchange rate. I always take like some pounds with me just to exchange in the destination where I'm going. The best option, the best place to change money abroad is in the bank. Or the post office. I would advise to do it in the bank rather than little shops which advise you which they tell you is the best deal over there. Many places like that, they charge you fee. So that fee sometimes could be more expensive than actually exchanging the money.
So I had a question about this one, Monica. Yeah. If I've left it, so I'm not always massively organized when I'm going away. And so if I've left it right to the day that I'm traveling to get my foreign currency, am I better off sorting that out at the airport when, while I'm waiting to get my flight? Or should I basically take pounds over there and change them when I get there?
Take the pounds and change over there. Airport is the place to avoid to exchange the money because they charge the most.
Right. Okay. So even though I've sort of left it all to the last minute, actually, you're better off just taking the pounds with you than converting them at the airport.
Yeah. What I usually check as well with my bank, if I withdraw money abroad, let's say at the airport when I get there, sometimes there is like a little fee of £1 or £2, and you can take cash, the local currency at the airport. So you are having money for taxi or getting by bus or options like that.
That's an interesting one. And I just wanted to touch on insurance because I think, when we were talking earlier about ways of cutting back and reducing costs and things like that, I imagine lots of people will be looking at the kind of the money for insurance and say, well, chances are nothing's going to go wrong. And so should I think about cutting back on that? But presumably we'd always say that travel insurance is a must.
Yeah, never save on that. You never know what's going to happen abroad. I hear lots of stories about like having a car accident. Okay, you go on holidays, you want to relax, but things do happen here and things do happen abroad. But abroad, if something happens to you, obviously the cost of daily rate of being in the hospital, you don't want to even know how much it is. Then with the insurance as well, there is, when it comes to EU, there is like a free card, global health insurance card, which I have as well. It's free to apply for it before you go to Europe. If something happens unexpectedly, you are covered within the Europe. So it's basically free, and later on the NHS here and NHS company abroad are dealing with your bill. The same what I mentioned earlier, I've got the yearly insurance, but if you don't travel that often, you can just basically find the cheapest insurance just covering your trip. Compare the market options or go compare for the cheapest insurance. And this is all when it comes to insurance.
I think it's fair to say, isn't it? Again, I'm a last minute person. So, even if you get to the airport and you think, oh, crikey, I haven't organised my travel insurance, even at that stage, it's not too late to organise it. As long as it's pre-departure on your flight, my understanding is that you're still going to be insured. And I think, the thing with the travel insurance is that, yes, it's annoying and, all being well. And I think, we'd all hope to never need to use our insurance. But I think even if you don't use the insurance on your tip, ultimately it's peace of mind, right? And why do we go on holiday? We go on holiday to relax. And so one of the things that having insurance means is that actually you can relax knowing that, even if something unexpected happens, and these things sometimes do, actually it's not going to leave you in a really deep financial hole. So I think that's, think of it as another way, think it as a way of making your holiday more relaxing rather than as an unnecessary cost.
Once you mentioned this, Ben, with the packages holidays, many times they tick these boxes for you. So once you see your flight option, then accommodation option, they as well offer from their side, or if you're insured, if you want insurance with us. Lots of flight companies are doing extra insurance before you actually pay for the flight. So they basically remind you about getting this travel insurance, which is very important when you go abroad.
So I think, we'll do this one, I think, quite quickly, because I'm conscious we've already spent quite a lot of time talking about budgeting. But I think we've sort of talked about kind of budgeting for summer as a whole. But I think, one of the things we'd also suggest is that, when you sit down and plan your holiday, even if you're not planning even if you're not one of the people that kind of, plans what you're going to do on every single day of your holiday, it's worth putting a bit of time into thinking, right, what am I going to spend that I wouldn't normally spend while I'm abroad? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think usually when you plan a holiday, you sort of give yourself a budget for getting there and for getting your hotel, but you might not necessarily think of certain other things, especially if you haven't travelled since before the pandemic. Quite a few things have changed since then. Prices have gone up. There are extra things you need to think about now, like COVID testing, PCR testing, and they can add significant expense onto your trip. So just making sure that you think of these things before you go and adding it into your budget. Same as getting around when you get there. It's great if you've booked your flight and your hotel, but how are you going to get to the hotel from the airport? You'll probably think, I'll just jump in a cab. But now you can use things like Google Maps, Apple Maps. They're worldwide. They'll tell you about public transport in other countries. And it's usually going to be a quarter of the cost of getting in a cab.
That for me is one of the biggest mistakes I've made in holidays in the past. Is you've got to the airport, you've maybe sort of while you're at the airport, you've maybe got some food or bought some stuff that you didn't need to buy at the airport. You get off the plane at the other end of the airport, you perhaps haven't properly researched the best way to get from the airport to your hotel. So by the time you get to your hotel, your holiday's just started. You're thinking, crikey, I've just spent a whole load of money that I wasn't planning to spend. And so even before you started the fun bit of the holiday, and so I think for me, the lesson from that is that actually it's really important to break it down and to think about that in a kind of a logical way.
Yeah, think about the country you want to go. And once Ben mentioned that as well at the airport, like the cost of sandwiches is just like ridiculous. So I am a foodie person. I eat a lot. So basically every time
I bring your own food to the airport.
Yes, obviously with Jews, you need to buy out like when you go through the gates. But like I usually have like a sandwich, which I make at home. I get some snacks. I just want to make sure I'm fully covered. I don't want to spend like £5 on a pack of crisps at the airport. So
are you the person sort of chugging your bottle of water before you go through security?
Yes, as well. But like I got the plastic bottle, which I usually take, and obviously I make it empty. Once you go through security gate, you can have a free refilling and you don't have to pay £2 for the bottle of water at the airport. I know maybe it's like £1 here and there, but when you started calculating that £1 here, £1 there, £1 there, it will end up being like £100 over like few days. So
that's a good tip there for not having to be ripped off by water at the airport. So that's so not to be sort of so doom and gloom about it, but I think we've touched on insurance about when things go wrong, but I think there's some useful ground to cover here as well in terms of particularly I think with the pandemic, some of us are a little bit out of practice. Been a while since we've done this. Obviously things have become a lot more digital and moved a lot more online during the pandemic, and so let's talk a little bit now about kind of some of the holiday scams and how to avoid them.
Sure. So I know we touched on before about booking package holidays, and these can come across and look like really great deals, but you need to make sure that you have protection, because sometimes if a deal does look too great or too good to be true, then quite often it is too good to be true. And if for whatever reason they cancel or something goes wrong, you want to be protected and know that you're going to get compensation. So we would say just always look out for if the holiday is at all protected, and you can see the logos there on the screen. These just mean that if anything was to go wrong, you're covered. You should get your money back or some sort of compensation. And like I just touched on then, if someone reaches out to you with a too good to be true deal, and it might be a company that you haven't necessarily heard of before, just avoid clicking on any links and avoid booking onto anything and making rash decisions, because you never know if it's a scam. If you click on a link, they might get into your banking details. They might get into your computer, your phone. It's just not worth it. So sometimes it might be better to pay a bit extra and know that you are completely covered and protected. And if you do think a deal looks great and you think you believe it, just make sure you do some research into the company, look at reviews, look at their website, look at the fine print. Just make sure you're covered.
I think it goes back to the reason why you go on holiday, right? The reason you go back on holiday is so that you have a relaxing time and don't have to worry about these things. And I think if in these times when everyone's tightening their belts, it is tempting sometimes to cut corners, but you have to think, well, is it worth it for me to turn up and find that the hotel or Airbnb I booked doesn't exist, or some other problems like that. So
exactly. And we touch on that on the slide as well, just about rental scams. Sometimes people book holidays and like you said, the hotel doesn't exist. So again, just potentially, even if you find something on Airbnb or on booking.com, a hotel,
you're covered in this case.
Well, I think, so I think that's an important point there, Monica, in terms of websites, websites like Airbnb, as long as usually under their terms and conditions, if you as long as you deal with the hotel or with the Airbnb owner through their websites, then you're usually protected by them. The thing to be wary of is if you contact someone via Airbnb and they say, well, actually, if you just transfer the money to me, here are my bank details, or they try and if they try and do the kind of the money side of things outside of Airbnb, then
never do that.
You should be really suspicious, because usually there's going to be a problem there and it's a scam, and you won't be protected if things go wrong.
Many times what they do as well, obviously they put accommodation through Airbnb or Booking, but they may email you separately saying, oh, please transfer money to this account. You may get like a discount from us or something. Please do not do it, because you are not covered. Sometimes as well, they send you separate link for some kind of deposit, which please do not do it as well. Everything should be going through the platform which you are booking with. And as we mentioned earlier, never transfer the money. Always use a safe way to pay, which is your card. Because in this case, if something goes wrong, you are fully protected and you may get your money back, or at least the voucher to use in the future.
Thank you very much, Monica. So I'm aware we've covered an awful lot of ground in this month's session. I think the thing to say probably before we go into questions is that, as always in these sessions, nothing that we've said or discussed in these sessions should be taken as financial advice. If you are looking for independent financial advice or unsure about what course of action is best for you, you should speak to a qualified professional. We're very much here to share some of our own personal opinions and personal experiences, perhaps to kind of shed some ideas. But always do your research, always look things up, and if you're unsure, speak to someone independent before going forward. And I think on that note, we'll open things up to any questions. So looking forward to seeing any questions. If you would like to ask us something, click on the chat icon, which you can see up on your screen, and we'll do our best to answer as many of those as possible. As I say, we're here to answer questions about things related to today's session. If you do have something specific that's personal to you about your account with London Mutual, then please do email us help@creditunion.co.uk or feedback@creditunion.co.uk, and a colleague will get back to you within 1 to 2 working days. But on that note, we'll see if there are any questions. Gosh, it's a quiet one today. I think we might have knocked over everybody with a little bit of information here. We'll give it a few minutes. I mean, I think any other aspects that we haven't sort of managed to cover, or which we skipped through.
I think we've covered pretty much.
We've covered loads of stuff. And obviously, these are all just sort of starting points. So if there is more stuff that you want to know, then the slides are being recorded. All the information will be sent back to you. So feel free to watch the slides again and do your own bit of research into it.
We've got a question here. Is travel insurance compulsory? In in most, certainly in the UK, most countries, it won't be compulsory. But I think the thing to bear in mind is that if you do find yourself needing medical care while you're abroad, or if you need helicoptering out of somewhere or flying back to the UK from wherever you are, you're going to be, if you don't have insurance, that's going to be coming out of pocket. So nobody wants to get back from their holiday and find that they're in tens of thousands, or in some cases hundreds of £1,000s of debt. I think we're in the UK, we're lucky enough to have the NHS, which very often can takes care of our medical needs. That's not the case in lots of countries you may be traveling to, and if you're not insured, then the cost can get extremely high, and there are cases where people could lose their home even due to the size of the debt.
With travel insurance,
it's not the highest cost really.
It's
on the
usually
holidays.
less than £15.
Yeah, it's not the highest cost.
If you're going to Europe for a week, it's usually around £10 to £15.
Yeah,
so it's kind of worth doing, so that you don't end up hundreds out of pocket.
So in answer to the question, it's not insurance, but it's certainly a very, very, very good idea.
Just to give you the example, my friend ended up in the hospital in Dubai. The daily rate was £10,000. So just you can imagine how much money it is to go abroad and spend a day in the hospital, which we don't want to do.
That's a holiday which could end up costing a lot more than you initially planned for.
And you would regret not spending that £15, I'm telling you.
Mandy, thanks for your question there. In terms of talking to someone about your account, so on the call today, we're happy to answer kind of general questions about our products and services and things like that. But if you do have something specific you'd like to ask, we would encourage you just to drop an email to feedback@credit.union.co.uk. The good thing about feedback@creditunion.co.uk is your email will go directly through to Monica here, who will make sure that it's directed onto the right person, and that we follow up with you within 1 to 2 working days. Often we'll reply to your email within a couple of hours if it's during the working day.
I would love to answer that question from Helen about the food and going abroad. Okay, that one is a bit tricky because there is not all the food you can bring abroad with you, especially the meat. But to be honest, sometimes people are really overspending money for the luggage. So for example, if you go for a week and you want to bring loads, obviously, except of the clothing and cosmetics and stuff, you want to bring lots of food with yourself. Sometimes it's cheaper actually to stick with the little bag and just take the hand luggage and basically go abroad to the shop and buy some things. It depends what countries you go in, but from my experience, the food sometimes is the same price or even less in abroad. The most expensive what I've noticed is there are cosmetics. So for example, the lotion, the sun protected lotions, get those at the airport. I usually buy those at Boots. Because abroad they tend to be kind of very expensive.
It's quite interesting around the self-catering thing there, isn't it? Particularly, I think, for people with kids and large families, eating out the whole time you're away on a holiday can get very, very, very expensive. So actually, self-catering can be a really, really good way of making the cost of the holiday that bit more manageable.
There is something very necessary you need to bring. Obviously, you can do it, but just try to check first online, because if it's a meat or plant or even cheese, some countries are forbidden to bring those kind of things to their country.
I know that one of my favorite things when going abroad is having a wander around the other countries' supermarkets to see what people eat and buy day to day.
Sorry, I might not have explained my question very well.
No problem at all.
So basically, I'm going for 2 weeks to Turkey. It is going to be a little bit more expensive because obviously my son is in school, so I have to wait for them to have their break.
Yes.
But so I've done that. We've booked self-catering. The food that I'm bringing is literally just things like packets of pancake mix.
This is perfect. This
things
is
like that are a bit easy. But I was just wondering if while abroad, if there was any other sort of money saving tips, like what you were just saying about going to the supermarket abroad and things like that.
Yeah, I think it sounds like that's a great idea, and I think I imagine particularly in Turkey there'll be things that it'll probably in the supermarket it'll be cheaper to buy in the supermarket than it would be to bring it over from the UK.
I think as well, if you want to save space in your suitcase so that you can take some extra, I don't know, maybe take things like pasta and rice, things that are fairly cheap here that you can cook over there. I would suggest maybe saving space in your suitcase by buying your sort of toiletries at the airport, which I know probably sounds like, oh, the airport's really expensive. But I think most airports in the UK, they have Boots, and they have the Boots own range.
Credit union near London.
They have the Boots own range, which is usually like they do shower gels for like 50p. You can buy a bottle of shampoo for a couple of quid, and that saves so much space and weight in your suitcase that you could use. Like even if you want to take, I don't know, a tin of chopped tomatoes or something, it's just extra space where you could take more food.
I think to that, consider as well like how much clothing you want to take, because when I go abroad, I really go very in my little suitcase, like, I don't know, 2 outfits a day. That's all. But like when I go sometimes with my friends, they are taking like really huge luggage for like a week, which personally I don't think is the case, because you're never going to wear all of this unless you keep changing 5 times a day.
So Monica, you're a light traveller.
Light traveller, yeah, exactly.
Great. Well, thanks very much for that question. Can the credit union do travel insurance? That's a good question. Not currently. That's not something which we're able to offer at the moment. My understanding is that is something which at the moment no credit unions in the UK do provide insurance, but I know that is something which is being worked on and something which may become an option in the future. So in the meantime, our advice, I think, as we've already outlined, is probably to use a price comparison website to shop around and find the deal that's best for you.
Check as well with your bank, with current account, because like some other high street banks do offer travel insurance within the monthly fee you pay for your bank account. So check that one as well.
Brilliant. Well, I think thank you everyone for their questions. And if there is something which we haven't had the chance to cover today, or you have something that's perhaps a bit more personal to you or regarding your account, you're always welcome to drop us an email at feedback@creditunion.co.uk, where Monica and our wider team will be able to make sure that it gets followed up with you and your questions are answered. So thank you as always for coming along and attending this month's Money Gym Masterclass. I would be, as I say, if you do need to contact us about specific things around your account, these are some of the ways to do it. And next month, we'll be looking at your mind and money, so how they affect each other. I think, in today's session and in previous month sessions, we've spent a lot of time saying things that you should do or it'd be a good idea to do and things like that. So next month, we're going to be looking at perhaps the kind of the mental health and the emotional side of money and how that can sometimes affect our financial decisions, and ways that we can ensure that managing our money helps our mental health rather than being a problem for us. So we're going to have an expert speaker joining us for that one, who's an expert on the psychology of money. So it'll be a really interesting one. So keep your eyes peeled, and we'll be sending you details of that into your inbox soon, along with a recording of today's session. So thanks very much, everyone, for joining us today, and see you soon.